Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. And today we're doing something kind of different from anything I've done before. I am remaking part 2 of What If Boros Turned Good because I had some problems with the first part. And I asked you guys if you wanted me to go crazy with this and you said yes, so trust me, I went crazy with this. You'll see what I mean later in the actual video. But, yeah, consider this sort of my, respect thread for Orochi. That's what I call this. But other than that, I hope you enjoy the video. And once this goes live, there will be a poll as well to accompany it on my community tab, in which I will ask you which part you would prefer to see in the actual compilation of this entire series when I eventually make that. The original part 2 or this remake of part 2. But beware, there will be a few inconsistencies with later parts in this part because I am changing quite a bit of stuff, but it's not anything too major. And without any further ado, I hope you enjoy the video, and yeah, just hope you have fun. Boros follows Awakened Cockroach to the Monster Association hideout. Along the way, he sees many monsters and gauges their power. Just small fries for the most part, though he walks past a few decently strong monsters too, at least by Earth standards. Pureblood, Senior Centipede, Royal Ripper, Bug God. All of the monsters look at Boros with a curious expression. They can tell by his appearance, by the way he carries himself, by the power radiating from his body. This guy is new here, and he isn't like any other normal monster. They decide to follow him to the main room, curious to see how things will go. Once the Bugman and the Dominator of the universe enter the main room, the alien gets his first look at the main attraction, the Monster King Orochi, a creepy-looking giant. He smirks to himself and looks around, seeing many monsters, hundreds of them in fact, but a few immediately get his attention. A tall, ugly-looking humanoid, a ball-like monster with a giant gaping mouth, eating the remains of what appears to be another monster. A small, black, mean-faced guy with a weird appendage on his head. A cat-like humanoid, a seemingly normal-looking human radiating a strange energy. A very big, four-eyed humanoid monster. A giant hound that looks like it came from the depths of hell. A big, fleshy, one-eyed creature, and of course, the towering Monster King. Boros can also vaguely make out another presence, and a massive one at that. But he can't see it for now, so he focuses his attention on the monsters already before him. What do we have here? Awakened Cockroach. Have you brought us a new recruit?
I have indeed. This one seems to have potential.
Gura fixes her attention on Boros. She can tell that this monster is strong, far above most of the association. She estimates him to be a threat-level dragon, and a strong one too. Well then, what are you waiting for? Introduce yourself, new guy. Boros takes a step toward Gura and Orochi.
My name is Boros. I once led a band of thieves known as the Dark Matter, and I arrived to this earth from outer space. I am the man behind City A's destruction.
The monsters start whispering among themselves. Of course they know what happened in City A. Due to the power radiating from the alien, the monsters take his claim seriously. Even the cadres. At least, most of them do. Awakened Cockroach bursts out laughing.
If you're truly who you say you are, what would such a powerful monster be doing hanging around in an abandoned city without purpose? You come in here acting like the boss, despite never having proven yourself once. You didn't even kill a single S-class hero when you attacked City A. Not to mention that all the monsters who were there were listed in the Hero Association datebooks. And you were nowhere to be found. Did you just hide away somewhere while your crew was getting slaughtered?
Boros flicks a finger in the direction of awakened cockroach, and the generated shockwave blows his head clean off.
What an annoying bug.
Some of the monsters are left speechless, but the cadres and some of the stronger demons are still confident and look down on the visitor. Some start shouting at Boros.
Quiet down, all of you. I need to have a chat with our new guest.
A chat? About what exactly?
We are planning to go to war with the Hero Association, and we currently have approximately 500 soldiers in the ranks of our organization. There's a similar number of heroes employed by the Hero Association. We have the edge necessary to emerge victorious as we are now. However, we could still use more fighting power, just to be completely safe. Seems like you are quite strong, Boros. By my estimation and the speed and power you've just showcased, you are a clear threat level dragon. I would like you to become a Monster Association executive. An executive right off the bat? Sure seems like you're playing favorites.
He's strong and he's looking for revenge against the heroes. Boros here is the perfect candidate for an executive position. The alien smirks.
Who said anything about revenge?
Excuse me?
I don't care about the conflict between heroes and monsters in the slightest. I don't give a crap about revenge either. All I want is to have an exciting battle. And I've been informed that all of the strongest monsters this planet has to offer have all gathered up right here, served in front of me on a silver platter.
Gyoro's eye narrows. She doesn't like where this is going.
What are you implying? Isn't it obvious? All 500 of you and me, right here, right now.
Boros lunges at the nearest monster, that being Bug God, and kills him with a single punch, immediately following the first hit up with a second one, aimed at Royal Ripper. The psychopathic monster tries to defend himself, but before he can even raise his arms, his top half is disintegrated by the punch. Gyoro realizes that there's no reasoning with the alien, and orders all the monsters present to kill him.
With pleasure!
Ugly shouts as he jumps down from the stands, followed by Gums and dozens of other monsters. Boros welcomes the challenge with a smirk.
Come at me! All of you!
Ugly goes in for a face-caving punch, and Boros responds with a punch of his own. Their fists collide, and Ugly looks on in shock as Boros' hand smashes straight through his own arm, crumbling the bones and tearing the flesh. With a single attack, Boros blows off the Ugmon's arm. Ugly screams out in pain as Boros slaughters the monsters around him. Gums tries to swallow the alien whole, but he's not nearly fast enough. Boros evades his jaws and gets under the creature. He places a hand on the cadre's lower jaw and rockets it upward, smashing the lower jaw into the upper so hard that Gums' teeth pulverize into dust. All the monsters are surprised, some shocked even. 2 cadres humiliated with 1 blow each. All the demon-level monsters and below start retreating, except for a couple. Pureblood and Rhino wrestlers step up to fight. Gyoro looks over to Orochi.
If this goes on, we will lose a significant amount of fighting power before our war with the Hero Association can even begin. Something has to be done.
Enough of this. Everyone retreat. We cannot afford to lose fighting power before even engaging the heroes. I'll take care of this personally.
The big boss steps up to fight already.
Orochi looks at Boros with a gleeful expression and thinks to himself.
I can feel it with every single monster cell inside me. This man is the perfect sacrifice for my resurrection. Boros, I am pleased to meet you. I would like to have a word with you, but not here.
As he says those words, a few of Orochi's horns rocket out of the ground around Boros, who just stands there and lets it happen for now, wanting to see where things will go. The Monster King's appendages shatter the ground beneath the alien and he falls down to a lower floor of the Monster Association's base. The horns break through that floor's ground and Boros falls deeper. This continues for dozens of floors. Orochi gets up from his usual spot and makes his way down to Boros' location, making sure to block the pathways he's just made after he passes through them. He wants this talk to be private.
I shall lead you inside.
Soon, the two beasts fall into a cavern full of molten lava. Boros ends up splashing into the burning hot liquid, but shrugs it off. He's been through worse on his home planet. If anything, this is a nice and warm bath for the alien. He steps out feeling a little refreshed and sort of nostalgic. This place reminds him of home. Boros looks around and sees some ancient ruins. He's confused, but also intrigued.
Seems like molten rock doesn't affect you in the slightest. I would expect nothing less from you. Welcome to the stage of my resurrection.
What is all this? Some sort of ancient ruins? And what's this resurrection you speak of?
This is an ancient shrine I discovered. Only I am aware of this place.
I see. Before we fight, tell me your name. I want to hear your story before I crush you.
Very well. But in exchange, you must tell me yours first.
Fine. Allow me to introduce myself properly then. I am Boros, Dominator of the universe. I come from a planet with the harshest environment ever discovered in any galaxy in our universe. My species has evolved over thousands of years to reach the pinnacle of human beings. I, in particular, possess recovery, physical ability, and latent energy that far surpasses any other. I used my power to conquer planets one after another. I fought many opponents along the way. Heroes who've slain great evils. Villains who've made their schemes a reality by using overwhelming power. Famed assassins who had never failed to hit a target before. Unmatched champions from numerous worlds. However, none of them could challenge me. No one in the universe was left to face me. My power had come with a price. Soon I came to know the torment of insufferable, all-encompassing boredom. But then a great seer said that I could enjoy a challenging fight on this planet. That was over 20 years ago. It took time to get here, but it was worth it. On this Earth, I found foes more exciting and powerful than on any other planet, and I believe you are one of them. So I'm hoping you excite me. Give stimulation to my existence. That is what I came here for.
Orochi's horrifying smirk grows wider and wider as Boros explains his story. He's becoming more and more certain that this alien before him is the worthy sacrifice the ancient ruins refer to.
A fascinating tale indeed. I am the Monster King Orochi. I used to be a normal human, but under Goro's tutelage, I was selected from the strongest to be put through extensive fusion, experiments, and battle testing. I overcame death many times. All of this led to my unconventional growth into a monster. Through sacrifices, I became powerful. However, eventually, the sacrifices my master had to offer were not enough to satisfy me. One day, I instinctively began venturing further into the Earth's depths in an attempt to drain energy from the deepest parts of the planet. I found this place seemingly by accident at first, though I would soon learn that it was fate that had led me here. These ancient ruins have been here for centuries, and yet the monster depicted on the mural looked exactly like me. Even more mysteriously, though the ancient text should have been indecipherable to me, I was somehow able to read it. Crossing the vast expanse of time, our God shall resurrect on this earth when, on this altar, a worthy sacrifice is offered. I was awakened to heaven's will. I, who had changed into a monster through experiments, was actually destined to become a god. Since then, I have put up a front of obeying Gyoro when I slaughter sacrifices, searching for the so-called worthy sacrifice. Until today, that is. Fate has led you all the way here to be my sacrifice. Now fight me like all the other battle trials and offer me your flesh. I shall give you the fight you are seeking, and in exchange you shall begin my resurrection ceremony.
As he shouts these words, Orochi's body morphs into a truly monstrous creature. Numerous dragon heads come flying at Boros, who smirks and lunges right at them.
Let the battle begin!
He exclaims and punches the dragon heads one by one, making them explode. Orochi responds by attacking Boros while he's in midair with dozens of dragon heads on all sides. The alien avoids them by using the heads themselves as footholds. He darts around the air, kicking and springing off of the appendages, but when he attempts to punch one of them, his fist gets redirected somehow. Unbeknownst to Boros, Orochi has taken part in many battles, some of which were against skilled martial artists, such as Goketsu. Due to the Monster King's adaptive nature, he has been able to perfectly memorize the techniques of those martial artists, and is now applying those skills here. Boros tries to attack again, but again his fist doesn't connect and the dragon head slams into him with its jaws, sending his body crashing into the rocky wall of the massive cave. The dragon's mouth starts glowing and fires off a massive energy beam at point-blank range. Boros takes it and grips the lower and upper jaws of the head with his fingertips. He then tears both of the jaws off in a brutal fashion and jumps up to avoid a few more beams launched at him by the Monster King. He runs on the wall at great speeds as numerous horns try to keep up and pierce him through, all while dozens of dragons fire off more and more lasers. Boros runs across the cave for a fifth time and changes his tactics. He sprints to the ground into Orochi's feet. The alien attempts to punch one of his legs, but before he can, the monster jumps into the air. His dragon-headed appendages bite into the walls of the cavern and hold him suspended in the air above the giant lake of lava. Dozens of other dragon heads then turn downwards and shoot massive beams and walls of fire that cover the entire bottom half of the cave and inevitably engulf Boros. But the Dominator of the universe tanks through it all and jumps up at his opponent from below, being hidden by the beams until he gets to one of the dragons. Boros grabs onto the appendage and springs off of it, straight at Orochi's face. The Monster King dodges to the side by using his tentacles, forms a giant fist and launches it at the alien. Boros gets hit directly and is sent flying into the ceiling. Orochi shoots more beams at him, driving him upwards. The monsters above can hear and feel the tremors from the battle, even if they are far from the actual battleground. They wonder what might be happening. Even Psychos is unable to watch this battle. Suddenly, the room gets warmer. Goro figures that it's probably just the heat from Orochi's beams and fire attacks. She considers telling the monsters to evacuate just in case, but decides not to. After all, Orochi is her loyal, brainwashed guard dog. He would never do anything that could cause harm to her or her plans. Or so she thinks anyway. Little does she know that Orochi, having found his perfect sacrifice, does not care about anything other than his reincarnation anymore. Meanwhile, Boros smirks in excitement. This is rather fun. The beams may not do any damage to him, but figuring out how to actually hit Orochi is the real puzzle. He flips around and plants his feet firmly on the rock that he's being driven into and jumps off of it, pushing back against the beams and getting back into the cave. Seeing this, Orochi stops his beams before he can drill into the main room of the Monster Association's hideout.
I am pleased by your performance so far, but will you be able to keep up when I condense my power?
Orochi's body starts morphing again. The tendrils and dragons wrap around each other and form new limbs. Orochi's body condenses into a more humanoid shape, and even more fire starts emitting from his flesh. Boros looks on in amusement, noting how similar this new form Orochi has taken is to his own release date.
I see. You've been holding back on me this entire time. Good thing I didn't go all out and kill you from the start, otherwise I would have missed out on this.
Above ground, Saitama and Genos feel the tremors. They think it's an earthquake at first, but when the rumbling repeats again and again, they realize it must be something else. Genos suggests going to the sewers to check what's happening underground, and Saitama agrees. Back in the underground cavern, the two beasts battle each other fiercely. Boros zips around the cave like a flash of light as Orochi tries to keep him at bay. Boros is physically far stronger, faster and more durable. However, Orochi's many appendages and wide area of effect blasts make him hard to hit. Orochi uses his many powers to keep himself in the battle. Using the various martial arts he's witnessed over his many battles, the Monster King is able to divert Boros' attacks and hit him in many hard-to-predict and skillful ways. The dragon heads on his tendrils provide Orochi with extra eyes, allowing him to see everything around himself, leaving no blind spots. He drills his horns into walls and attacks his foe from unexpected angles. The monster even uses the various laser attacks at his disposal as flashbangs in an attempt to blind Boros, though he quickly realizes that that particular strategy is ineffective due to the alien's ability to sense energy. Either way, Orochi fights fiercely. The alien charges at the Monster King over and over again, but Orochi pulls himself out of the way or knocks his foe back every time. Boros is not taking any damage, but he's not able to deal any damage either. At least, not as he is now. After a while of fighting this skilled and tricky opponent, he eventually gets bored. This isn't a real fight. This is a puzzle to solve. Normally that might interest Boros, as this type of opponent is rare, but when he can just power up and end the battle at any time, there's no stakes involved. Which means no excitement. There's no point in continuing this battle. Boros grunts slightly as he powers up further. The aura around him turns blue and more intense. It spikes up and lightning starts radiating from his body. Orochi takes notice and realizes that now his opponent will have the edge. His physical ability will be enough to make up for any difference in technique. The Monster King realizes he's in a tough spot and can only think of one solution. He begins growing a tail to shoot into the ground, with his plan being to absorb energy directly from the Earth's core and strike his opponent with his ultimate attack, the Gaia Cannon.
Let's see how you stand up to this.
Orochi declares triumphantly before suddenly feeling a sharp pain in his shoulder. From the corner of his eye, the monster sees a figure charge past him and land on the ledge behind him. A moment later, Orochi's arm is severed from his body and falls into the lava below, making a huge splash. The Monster King's eyes widen as he realizes what happened. Boros must have lunged at him and punched clean through his shoulder. Orochi couldn't even react to his enemy moving. He quickly turns around, visibly shaken.
How?
Boros looks up at the creature with a bored look in his eye.
So this is the extent of what the supposed Monster King is capable of, huh? How disappointing. I came here looking for a worthy challenger. After the spiel you went on, I was excited to face you. And yet, since the start of this battle, you haven't even scratched me. You're skilled and versatile, but you lack basic power and speed. I had fun at first, witnessing all the tricks you could pull, but I could have ended the fight anytime I wanted. I restrained myself, thinking maybe you'd show me something new. Maybe you'd show me something actually threatening. But of course, you provided none of that. And now it's clear that you can't even keep up with me at all. This battle is as good as over. If you have anything else you'd like to show me, go ahead. Hit me with all you've got. And then I'm ending your life.
Orochi can't believe what he is hearing. He, the great monster king, isn't a worthy challenger to this alien? It sounds unbelievable. But there's no reason for Boros to lie. And he just clearly showed that he does have the power and speed to finish this battle whenever. A realization suddenly hits Orochi. The man behind him has both the intent and the capacity to actually end his life. And that realization awakens something in him. A long-forgotten, primal feeling arises in the Monster King. Fear. Fear for his very existence. Fear that everything he's done up until now, all the trials he went through, all the experiments, all the sacrifices, his goals of rising into godhood, it's all crumbling. All of it meaningless in the face of true terror, in the face of death. Boros sees that internal fear seep onto the monster's face. His expression shifts into one of fear. His eyes no longer hold the murderous glee they once did. Instead, the alien sees the eyes of a scared animal, desperately looking for a way to escape a dangerous predator despite being completely cornered. Boros sighs.
You have no idea how many times I've seen this. Proud warriors reduced to pleading, crying messes the moment they realize they're about to die. It's pathetic.
The alien takes a few steps toward Orochi.
If you have any last words, speak them now. You will not get another chance.
He clenches a fist as he says these words. Orochi stares at the alien wide-eyed. This is it. His end is nearing. There's no escape. He's going to die. He's going to die. That thought flashes in Orochi's mind over and over and over again, consuming his entire being. It edges itself into the monster's mind. His body begins trembling. But not from fear. Orochi's a prodigy nearly on the same level as Goro, capable of mastering advanced techniques at a glance. He is extremely adaptive, having been faced with death many times, and having had to evolve to overcome said death just as many times. Having gone through monsterization of the highest degree, Orochi's cells are very unstable, and prone to adaptation. Faced with the prospect of death once again, actual death, not in a controlled, experimental environment that psychos used to create for him to grow. For the first time in his life, Orochi feels genuine terror. For the first time in his life, Orochi is actually about to die. His already adaptive nature is forced to push him beyond the limits of his body once again, resulting in explosive growth. The Monster King shakes and twitches. His muscles start pulsing. Boros notices a sudden shift in his aura. He feels intense energy swell up in the monster's body. And then, without warning, Orochi's skin ruptures and explodes. The Monster King is torn apart. A disgusting mass of flesh quickly engulfs the entire cave. Boros is swept up in a repulsive tsunami as it expands further and further, breaking down the walls of the cavern. Above ground, the earth starts trembling. A ginormous earthquake rocks the abandoned Z city to its very core. Stores, apartments, and office buildings all collapse and crumble into tiny pieces. A wave of flesh mixed with various organs, bones, and animal body parts suddenly erupts from the ground and starts spreading through the ruins of the city. Tendrils made up of this revolting mixture wrap themselves around the remains of buildings, and muscle tissue floods the streets. Boros explodes onto the scene from below and observes this strange phenomenon as he hops from tendril to tendril, keeping himself on the surface of this disgusting mass. He frowns. The grotesque visual is one thing, but the energy coming from all this flesh, it feels so twisted and repulsive, so dark and empty. Even the heartless alien, who's killed billions in his past, feels a shiver run down his spine at the mere presence of the creature forming around him. Underground, Psychos can feel the massive earthquake and wonders what's going on. But as she tries to use her psychic powers to look at everything in the surrounding area, she suddenly realizes that she can't. It's almost like some sort of protective shell has formed around the entire Monster Association, trapping every single member inside. The walls of this shell are so full of energy that it's disrupting her psychic perception and preventing her from peeking outside. Just what in the world is going on? That is also the exact question that Boros finds himself asking on the surface.
What the hell? What happened to Orochi? What is all this?
The alien mutters. At the same time, the flesh finally stops erupting from the ground, having flooded almost the entire Z city. A few moments later, dozens of mouths and eyes start forming all around the landscape. All the jaws open up simultaneously. A blood-curdling laugh erupts from all directions at the same time.
Boros, you are indeed a worthy sacrifice. So worthy that it seems my resurrection began early. I can feel it, my body merging with the terrain around me. This is my true destiny. I shall devour you, the monster and hero associations, along with every other life form on the planet to grow my power. And then, I shall become one with the very earth itself.
Orochi declares. He figures that subconsciously, he must have known this all along. After all, the only reason he found God's mural in the first place was because he instinctively traveled into the depths of the earth to absorb its energy. Bending the planet to his will has always been Orochi's one true purpose.
Now, let the feast begin!
A deafening scream comes out of the many mouths at once. The flesh that is covering the entire area begins squirming and twitching. Boros sees this and immediately jumps into the air. Just in time too, as the ground below him morphs and dozens of tendrils lunge at the alien from below. Boros' eye widens as he realizes these things are way faster than Orochi ever was. The alien expels a surge of energy from his feet and quickly rockets away from the attack. But to his surprise, the tendrils start following him like heat-seeking missiles. At the same time, tens of dragon and snake heads erupt from the flesh in front of him and charge at him, ready to chomp down on the alien. Boros starts ducking and weaving around, maneuvering himself in the air just to barely dodge all the attacks thrown his way. He starts punching and kicking all the appendages around him, and blowing them into pieces. However, whenever he destroys one tendril or dragon, 5 more appear to replace it. Boros isn't making any progress at all. Laughter comes from all directions.
Shut up already! You sound disgusting!
Boros shouts as he shoots a beam of concentrated energy at one of the many mouths. However, instead of burning away the flesh, the beam just gets absorbed by the mass and nothing happens.
You're not getting rid of me that easily.
More and more mouths and eyes start popping up all around Boros, surrounding the alien. They all open up and start glowing.
Here, have this back times 100.
The abomination declares and fires hundreds of lasers at the alien from all directions. Boros quickly puts his hands together. He gathers up a large amount of energy and forms a sphere around himself to block all the monster's beams. As the lasers collide with Boros' makeshift barrier, the alien is left completely unable to see anything going on around himself. And due to the immense amounts of energy drowning the entire city, he's unable to use energy sensing to track Orochi's movements either. Suddenly, the ground below the alien's feet splits open and a massive tendril shoots at him from behind. Its sharp tip punctures Boros' shield and slams into his spine. The Dominator of the Universe feels a sharp pain in his stomach and tilts his head down, only to see a giant spike piercing his body. At the same time, the evolved Monster King stops firing lasers at the alien. The light around Boros' form clears up, and he looks around. The dozens of mouths that had just been firing at him let out a deafening, monstrous laughter. The Dominator of the Universe coughs up a bit of blood. He clenches his teeth and grips the tendril impaling him with one hand. He yanks it out of his stomach and throws it away, healing his injury instantly. The alien floats in the air as the mouths around him keep laughing. Boros can't help but smirk.
Well, you're certainly much more of a worthy foe now than you were a few minutes ago. But it'll take a lot more than that to kill me,
he says before powering up more.
You can't possibly think that's all I've got. I'm just getting started.
The eyes and mouth suddenly disappear and the flesh surrounding the alien starts melting. The tendrils, dragon heads, everything around Boros liquefies into a disgusting mush. The alien feels a shiver run down his spine once more. A few seconds later, the mass beneath him starts forming into a huge shape. Boros flies off into the sky and observes what's happening below. Orochi's body morphs into a truly gigantic and monstrous entity, the size of a mountain. At the peak, a ginormous reptile-like head forms.
This form is truly something to behold, don't you agree? Now, come at me, Dominator of the Universe!
Boros smiles.
Now things are getting fun. This time I'll go all out.
The alien's blue aura spikes up and lightning erupts from his body. He charges straight at Orochi and winds up the strongest punch he can. Orochi in turn lunges his massive head at Boros and opens his jaws wide, intending to swallow the alien whole. The two titans collide and a massive explosion rocks the entire continent. Orochi's mouth closes up on Boros' body, but a mere moment later, the force of the alien's punch blows the massive creature into pieces. Chunks of flesh scatter into the air all around the alien and quickly morph into dragon heads of various sizes and unleash a barrage of energy beams on Boros, who swirls around in the air and starts punching the heads one by one. While he's doing this, the flesh in the city below him starts rising and forming into a huge, vaguely humanoid form. The creature grows several razor-sharp blades for arms and starts swinging at Boros. The Dominator of the Universe raises an arm to stop one of the blades, but to his surprise, it cuts straight through his exoskeleton and chops his arm clean off. Boros discharges some energy from his feet and flies backwards to gain some distance, before shooting an energy beam at the towering giant.
You fool!
Orochi grows a giant mouth on the chest of the humanoid form, which quickly swallows up the energy blast. Boros frowns. He thought that maybe this thing had a limit to how much power it could absorb and he could overflow it. But that was a full power blast and it did nothing. He can't risk feeding this thing more. The alien's thoughts are interrupted by a bellowing shout from the flesh below, and the humanoid monster detaches its 4 blade arms from its body and launches them at Boros. They quickly break apart into hundreds of smaller blades and surround the alien from all directions. Boros tries to summon up some energy to repel them, but the blades pierce right through his aura and sink into his body from all sides. The alien lets out a pained grunt. He wonders how this could have happened, before realizing that the daggers absorbed his energy just as they collided with it, and that's why they were able to get through his shield so easily. He frowns. This is bad. It's like the monster specifically evolved to counter him in every possible way. The blades then suddenly start moving around and dicing Boros up. The alien's body swells up and splatters into dozens of pieces. The giant Orochi laughs out loud.
How pathetic! The great dominator of the universe reduced to little more than mincemeat for the monster king to consume.
Boros' body starts gathering and forming back together, but Orochi sees this and sends even more blades his way. The alien can't focus on his regeneration with this many shards of flesh metal trying to cut him into bits. Boros' regenerating body gets shredded and torn apart multiple times, but the alien simply reforms over and over again. His regeneration is far too strong and fast for the blades to be able to stop him. But he can't do anything to harm Orochi either, seeing as the monster absorbs all his attacks. He can't just punch a hole in this giant thing because it'll simply close back up and the alien will have wasted energy. For the first time in his life, Boros is at a loss for words on how to kill an opponent. Orochi continues laughing as his body gets destroyed over and over again until finally, Boros has had enough. Shut up! Boros yells. His blue aura flares up and lightning sparks around his body. A massive surge of energy is released from his form and the blades and chunks of flesh all around him are blown back. They absorb a good chunk of the released energy, but it's still not enough to negate the push, and the alien manages to put enough distance between himself and Orochi to fully regenerate his body. He pants a few times. Now this is what I'm talking about. I'm actually in trouble here. It's been ages since I've had a fight this thrilling. Orochi, you are an amazing opponent, but you will not defeat me. The alien shouts and his power surges. His eye starts glowing and a massive aura is released from his body. The atmosphere is distorted around the alien, who's now grinning widely and using all of his latent energy to boost his power to the maximum. He pushes his body to its very limit, just 1 inch away before he would activate a meteoric burst. The Dominator of the universe is at his full, maximum output and ready to unleash the full extent of his abilities. And he knows what to do. He's been trying to figure out how to kill this new form of Orochi ever since the moment he transformed. And at first, Boros was completely clueless about how he should go about doing that. But now, having forced the newly formed Monster King to use his powers a bit, the alien uses his sensory abilities and picks up on a pattern. Every time Orochi uses his energy, it always comes in waves from somewhere deep below ground. Somewhere down in the earth, there has to be some sort of core. Maybe even Orochi's original body. That's the only explanation. That is where the energy originates. Now he just needs to reach it. That's easier said than done though. Orochi is still extremely powerful, and despite Boros' incredibly vast reserves of energy, there's a limit to how much he can let Orochi absorb. Boros knows that he'll have to plunge into the depths of the earth, where he'll be completely surrounded by his enemy on all sides. If he runs out of energy down there, it's all over. But this is a gamble he must take. Boros lets out a scream and rockets down to the ground. He breaks through the layers of Orochi's flesh and buries himself into the earth, leaving the surface and the massive form of Orochi far behind. Boros goes deeper and deeper, passing layers of flesh and rock. He needs to reach the bottom and find the source of the energy that Orochi has been drawing on at all cost. It's his only chance. Soon, the alien breaches some sort of wall and falls into a giant cavern made up of nothing but flesh and organs. It would be pitch black, but Boros' own energy lights up the cave and allows him to see around himself. Suddenly, hundreds of eyes and mouths form around the cavity.
Congratulations! You have made it into your tomb, Dominator of the universe.
As Orochi's voice echoes throughout the cavern, the matter around Boros starts shifting and many disgusting tendrils and heads emerge from the walls, floor, and ceiling.
In all my days of conquest, not once have I met anyone anywhere near as repulsive as you.
Boros jokes before getting serious. The final charge is about to begin. Quickly, the alien kicks off of the floor of the cavity and lunges at the heads. The dragons, snakes, and other weird monstrosities all open their mouths and fire a barrage of energy blasts at Boros. He swerves and dives beneath them, evading most, but some hit him in the shoulders, legs, and side. The alien tanks through the pain and reaches the nearest monster. He grabs it by the neck and swings it into the air, bashing another incoming projectile with the appendage. Boros then uses the dragon as a club and starts swinging it around to bash and block incoming lasers, beams, and attacks. He's slowly making his way toward the back wall, but the attacks aren't letting up. The alien struggles against hundreds, no, thousands of attacks coming his way. Insect legs, laser beams, giant mouths, stingers, hands, and more all press Boros and start pushing him back. The Dominator of the universe grunts as a tendril collides with his body and sends him crashing into the ground. He quickly recollects himself and stands up before noticing a giant head rapidly charging at him from the side. Boros tries to punch it, but the creature's jaws open up wide and it crashes into Boros before chomping him in half. The alien coughs up blood and quickly propels his upper half into the air before regenerating. He looks around. Various horrifying monsters surround him on all sides. From above and below, too. On top of that, he can feel his energy being drained just by being here. After all, he is inside of Orochi's body. Things are looking bad. Even if he used Meteoric Burst now, it would expel so much energy that the form wouldn't even last a second before being absorbed. Boros grits his teeth and decides to do something stupid. He can feel that he's close to wherever he needs to be. The energy here is far more dense than anywhere else in the creature, so he might as well try. The alien starts focusing. All of his energy begins pulling together into a massive sphere of power. The alien's muscles twitch and veins pop out as he gathers every last ounce of his power and forces it into one singular point, his right foot. The alien's body starts trembling. Blood splurts out of his pores and his eye turns bloodshot. He's not quite at the limits of Meteoric Burst range, but it's damn close. This will have to do. Boros lets out a primal roar and thrusts his foot back before unleashing the built-up energy. A giant wave of power bursts out of his leg and the force of it propels the alien forward like a missile. Orochi's bodies and heads try to stop him, but they are all blown apart by the blast. Boros charges at unimaginable speeds through the monster's insides, breaking down everything in his path. Hundreds of mouths and tendrils get in his way and rip chunks of his body off, but despite the blood and the pain, Boros rushes forward. It's a suicidal charge as the alien loses more and more body parts, more and more blood, until all that's left of him is a chunk of his head, his left arm, torso, and right leg. However, he also feels himself getting closer and closer to the core. The energy here is so strong, so dense. This has to be it. He's almost there. Just a little more. Suddenly, a mouth appears right beneath Boros, and with a perfectly timed bite, chomps his leg off. The alien, propelled only by the momentum he's built up, barrels through the cavern and smashes painfully into the ground. He rolls a few hundred meters before stopping. Now all that's left of him is his torn apart torso, his banged up arm, and his head. His blood-soaked hair sticks to his face, making it hard to see much. The Dominator of the universe groans as he notices a few mouths, tendrils, slowly approaching him. Gleeful smirks appear on all of them at once. Boros curses under his breath. He raises his head and sees a tunnel before himself. Not a metaphorical one, but an actual tunnel. He can feel intense energy coming from it. This is it. The path to Orochi's core. The alien, having spent most of his energy, can't regenerate. And yet, he refuses to give up now. Not when he's so close. Not when his pride is on the line. With his one remaining hand, Boros starts pulling himself forward and enters the tunnel. Surprisingly, none of the heads around him try to stop him.
Look at you, the Dominator of the universe, slithering on the ground like a pathetic worm.
Boros ignores the monster's words and simply pushes forward. After a few minutes, he finally reaches the end of the tunnel. He sees a large cavern open up before him. To his surprise, it's the same cave where the ancient ruins are. Of course, that's where this entire transformation occurred. This is the center of it all. In the middle of the room, Orochi's body floats in the air, attached to hundreds of strands of flesh. He looks pleased with himself.
You should have finished me off when you had the chance, Boros. But I am grateful. It's thanks to you that I have been able to achieve these heights. Once I devour you, I shall complete my ascension into godhood.
Shut the hell up!
Boros mutters through gritted teeth. He pushes himself up with his one remaining hand and looks up at Orochi.
You will not defeat me!
Look at your situation, alien. What can you do in the shape you're in?
Orochi asks, and the tendrils and dragon heads around Boros start shifting around, as if to remind him that he's still completely surrounded. However, in response to this, the alien smirks.
I may be in rough shape, but you made one fatal mistake. You allowed me to reach your core.
Boros declares as he raises his one remaining hand into the air before clenching it into a fist. The eye on his chest lights up as Boros floods all of his energy into it. Lightning erupts from the alien's torso, and he points his eye at the ground. With a large roar, Boros unleashes a giant shockwave of pure power at the flesh beneath him, and the force of it knocks his body into the air and toward Orochi's core. The Monster King's eyes widen and he quickly sends many dragon-headed tendrils after Boros, but the creatures are just a fraction of a second too slow to react, and the Dominator of the universe appears right in front of Orochi's chest. He redirects all of his power into a fist, and winds it up. With momentum from his earlier stunt, he punches the Monster King's core with all of his might. Boros screams as he drives his fist and his entire body through Orochi and blows a hole in him. The monster roars in agony as the alien collapses to the ground, now truly, completely spent. Orochi writhes in pain and turns to Boros.
You you! I will end you!
He bellows, but before he can follow through with his threat, the Monster King feels his body swell up. He looks at his hands. They're glowing.
What's going on?
Orochi's body starts disintegrating. With at the core, there's nothing to hold the creature together. He screams in pain as the flesh roots connecting him to his evolved frame tear apart and the monster falls to the ground. The entire cave made up of the Monster King's flesh starts squirming and shifting around. Suddenly, it all begins glowing just like Orochi's body before disintegrating. Like a wave, the decay spreads from the center cavern onto the surface. All the flesh that Orochi had used to cover City Z starts slowly disappearing. A few minutes later, Boros sits on a rock in the cave, leaning against the wall. He looks over at Orochi. The creature has fully reverted back to his original form and is slowly dying.
You bastard. How did you do this? I evolved specifically to counter everything you had. You were completely out of power. I sensed your energy reserves run dry after I severed your leg. You had directed all of your energy there. So how? How do you still have power?
Boros smiles.
Indeed. If we had a straight-up brawl, you would have won. But I'm not some brainless beast. I noticed the mouth you used to chomp my leg off at the last moment and redirected my remaining power from my foot into my hand in an instant and concealed it. Then I crawled my way to your core before unleashing that energy.
But that was a reckless gamble. You could have been done for if I had just decided to kill you.
Perhaps. Had you decided to kill me when I fell to the ground, that would have been it for me. But you allowed me to go through the tunnel and reach you, because you wanted to see me struggle, right? You wanted to see my life fade with your very own eyes. Your hubris got the better of you, Monster King.
Boros declares. Orochi is left speechless. He turns to the altar where their fight first started.
A god. That was what I wanted to become. And like a true god, I was invincible. You did not have the power to defeat me. In the end, I can at least take solace in the fact that it was my very own self that killed me.
The Monster King closes his eyes. A few minutes later, Boros is able to recover enough energy to close his wounds and regenerate his lost limbs. The walls of the cave start cracking. The force of the impacts of Orochi's final transformation and Boros' final punch shook the room enough to make it unstable. Chunks of rock and debris start falling from the sides and ceiling of the cavern. The wall around the ancient ruins crumbles down, revealing a full picture of the mural. The alien stares at the drawing in surprise.
Well, would you look at that? Seems you interpreted your fate incorrectly, Orochi. You should have dug deeper. In the end, it seems that you were the sacrifice for some other entity. Our god is what you told me you read from the altar, right? Maybe I can someday meet this so-called god of yours.
The cave starts collapsing completely. Debris buries the altar, leaving Boros as the only one who would ever lay his eye on it. Once the cave-in finishes, the alien sits down on the rubble and sighs.
The battle left me worn out. I shall take some time to rest before I go back up there and face the other monsters. Though I doubt any of them will be able to provide me with a better challenge than this.
Boros leans back and looks up at the ceiling.
Orochi, the Monster King. You were a worthy adversary. I shall never forget our duel.